Hey everybody, how's it going? Thank you for tuning in for another track guide. Tonight we're going to be going over the um, C-Class trucks at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Might be kind of a shorter guide. I don't have too many tips for you guys, but I would absolutely like to thank everybody for the incredible support that the channel's gotten over the last couple of weeks. It's been awesome. Tons of you guys have commented and said that the tutorials are helping you do better in your splits and win some races, so that's absolutely awesome. And some people have even shared some more tips with me in the comments, which is greatly appreciated, and that's exactly the kind of stuff that I want on the channel. So thank you all so much for the support. So without further ado, let's get into it here. So some things about Vegas. In the trucks, um, it's it seems to be a pretty neutral setup when you're out by yourself. So when you're out running qualifying laps or running practice, the setup seems pretty neutral. If anything, it trends towards loose in the middle of the corner and tight on exit. So that's probably because with these trucks, when you're out by yourself, it's pretty much flat foot the whole time in any lane for like 10 laps. So that might change in the actual race. Um, in the races, I would anticipate the cars being or the trucks being a little bit more lively because you're going to have all the air moving around. You're not going to have quite as much air on the front of the truck for downforce or the rear of the truck hitting the spoiler, so they might get a little sketchier in the corners, especially on long runs. And your speed's going to be higher than it is if you're running by yourself as well. Uh, Las Vegas has progressive banking. So what that means is that the bottom part of the track, let's back it up. This is actually a pretty decent shot of it here. The bottom portion of the track, so once the banking starts, it doesn't just keep the same 20 degrees all the way up to the wall. It actually increases banking the further you go up the track. So that's going to allow you to keep more momentum on the higher sides of the track than somebody running down low, which could be really advantageous on a longer run. You might use that to sling around and get a run on somebody that's trying to make a pass, maybe on the low side or something. You might be able to get some pretty nice moves done around the outside using that. So keep that in mind as you're racing. The lower lane is probably going to cause some more right front tire wear slash heat buildup than the top lanes will. So you'll want to keep that in mind also. I did run several like 10 lap stints trying out different things, and the right front tire temperature running the low lane was just a little bit higher than it was when I ran the second lane up. So I ran a few laps running down here in the corners, and then I ran a few laps running up here in the corners. And the right front tire did not get as hot in the second lane as it did in the bottom lane. So keeping in mind that the trucks are probably going to be a little bit more lively when they're in a pack, I would anticipate that the second lane and maybe even the third lane is going to come in during some of the races. And you can also find a balance between saving your right front tire versus taking the shorter route around the track. So that's probably going to be one of the most difficult things about this week is the lower lane in the corner is going to have you traveling less track. So that's going to save some time, but you're going to end up losing some speed. If you take the second lane, you might save some of your right front tire, but it's going to take you a little bit longer to get around the track. So you'll have to find a balance between like maybe running one lap down low and one in the middle and alternating, or five and five, something like that. Um, Another thing we can anticipate this week is, as I said, the trucks tend to kind of be loose getting into the corner, um, but coming out, they're going to want to get tight. So you're going to end up having to breathe the throttle just a little bit, meaning like you'll have to and not flat foot it. You'll have to be maybe 70, 80% throttle coming out of the corners or in the middle of the corner to get the truck to point where you want it to go so that you don't just kind of scrub the ever living daylights out of that right front tire. Um, so yeah, I think if you're aware of those things, you're probably going to have a pretty decent week. Um, it pretty much goes without saying, I'm not using any brake here at all. It just slows you down too much, and you're better off backing your corner entry up just a tiny bit. So starting to come out of the throttle maybe just a little bit earlier and letting the truck ride down into the corner than you are braking. If you're using the brakes, then you're over slowing the vehicle and then having to overcompensate with the throttle, which is kind of shifting the weight of the truck around in the middle of the corner. So if you're braking going into the corner and you overslow the truck and then you kind of stab back on the throttle, you're shifting the weight of the truck towards the back wheels, but that's taking weight off of the front wheels, which you need for cornering at that moment. So you definitely don't want to do that. That's just going to make the truck tighter, or it could even snap loose. So let's go over one of my quicker laps here. We're not setting the world on fire with these, but it should be good enough to put you at a pretty decent spot. Um, so we'll watch it and then we'll go over it. I'll back it up just a little bit so you can see what we did here. Okay, so that was that lap. Um, as you could tell, flat foot the whole time when you're out by yourself. So we'll kind of go over this. I like to go below the apron. It shaves just a tiny bit of distance off of the lap. Um, and then as you're coming up here, you're going to want to get next to the wall, kind of. It's actually the truck's handle, they have so much downforce and they handle well enough that you don't need to be up here at the wall on a qualifying run to maximize the corner. You can actually enter about in the middle of the turn and get everything working and turning down with you. And then you're going to want to hold the truck down here on this white line, or at least as close as you can get it. And notice how the truck's moving around a lot. So even though you're flat footing and it doesn't seem like it's that difficult, the truck is bouncing around quite a bit. And you're definitely going to want to be aware of that because these bumps right here, especially in the middle of kind of where one and two transition into each other, the truck can bounce and just kind of go straight up the track. So if somebody's on your outside and you run right over that portion of the track, you might end up dooring them or they might end up dooring you. So keep that in mind. If you see somebody kind of struggling with that line, maybe just give them a little bit more room. There's no need to force it because then you could end up taking out both of your races and then that's no fun. And on the exit of turn two here, I went up kind of towards the wall. You don't really have to. You can kind of pinch the truck and run kind of in the middle because again, we can enter pretty close to the middle of the track. Or not middle, but maybe like the top of the second lane. And then same thing here. Turn it down and let it hug this line as best you can. It's going to get tight on the way out and kind of want to ride up, and that's perfectly fine. You might be able to pinch it down a little bit more and keep from losing some time. So that's something else to keep in mind. So let's talk about long runs here. What do you do to save tires here? Open up that corner entry. So as you can see, like on this lap, we don't go all the way towards the wall. If you're trying to save and maximize tires, you're going to want to open up this corner entry some and be right up next to the wall before you dive it down into the turn. and just be patient with the truck. Don't try to wheel it too hard. You'll notice that going through the corner, you pretty much hold the wheel almost steady when you're by yourself. Not having raced this week in a pack, I'm not sure how that's going to be. Like I said, I anticipate it's going to be a little bit looser in the middle and maybe even tighter on exit. So, but you just kind of want to hold it steady. Don't over crank the wheel. Don't oversteer because then you're just going to burn up that right front tire. So basically what I do is I go into the corner and then before I ran these laps, I would go into the corner and then try to see how much I could come out of the steering and straighten up the steering wheel before the truck would stop reacting how I wanted it to. When you can get that line, like that fine line down of turning but not oversteering, you're going to save that right front tire, which is going to be critical for this track this week. And the last part of saving tires is your biggest enemy, it seems like, is going to be the heat buildup. The hotter that the tire gets, the less it wants to grip the track to a certain point. There's a point of warm up where they get sticky, and then there's a point where the rubber just kind of comes off too easy and they're not really gripping so much as they're just sliding and taking rubber off. Um, so if you do feel that start happening, try running a lane up. Then a lane up higher than what you've been running and see if that gives the tire time to cool down. Maybe do that for 2 or 3 laps and then try running your normal line again if you need to make some moves. Just try not to overdrive it when that condition starts happening in the truck. Try to feel for that and be pretty aware of it so that you can change up your line. And I think with those tips, I think you should be pretty set for Las Vegas this week. Um, let me know how it goes. Love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments and to see how it's going. And again, before I close with the video, I would just like to say thank you so much for actually, I mean, killing it. You guys are awesome for watching these videos and commenting and everything. I appreciate it so much. And we'll keep doing what we do. Glad to have you all around. I hope you picked up some more tricks for the track. And good luck this week.